Gianni's got the stories from the coast to countryside. Jeanie's got the questions sharp as Sinatra's sway. Every Wednesday night we take you all the way. From the back streets of Tinseltown to the Trattoria's glow. Old Hollywood meets Mafia tales, and you're about to know it's the Hollywood Godfather, where the big band plays and the stories don't stop. With Gianni and Jeanie everywhere, they're taking you to the top. Keep it smooth and keep it classy. Feel that swing non-stop on the Hollywood Godfather.
Welcome, everybody. It's time for another Hollywood Godfather podcast. And tonight I'm really excited because I met this gentleman a while ago. I indirectly got involved in some of the conversations of his previous projects, which we're going to talk about. But before we introduce him, what I'd like to do is bring my co-host, Jeanie Raymond. My darling, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you, Gianni?
Good, perfect. Well, I'm excited for us to introduce Miles, if you will.
Thank you for having me,
Johnny. To the show. Welcome to the show, please. And we talked briefly a few minutes ago. I really like you because you're such a newcomer and so aggressive. I mean, I hate to say this, but you remind me of me when I was your age. I was all over the place, and I think that's what you have to be. If you're not out there selling yourself and promoting yourself at the level you're doing already, you're not going to make it. I have 10 sons. I wish they had your energy.
Well, I take that as an honor and a compliment. And Gianni, could I just tell the story of how we first met and worked on that documentary together? Because I think that's where it all started.
Oh, yeah, please.
So I was writing and producing this documentary we were doing called The Real Godfather, and it was kind of the story of Colombo and New York back in the day and how it tied into the Godfather film. And I was looking through potential guests to reach out to and to talk about this. And the more and more I looked, the more it tied back to Gianni Russo, the man, the legend himself. And I thought we have to interview him. And so we went to the apartment you see featured there in your window, Gianni, and he was gracious enough to host us in his home. And the whole story behind that and how you originally had got the apartment through working with Frank Costello, that was fascinating. And then we just dove into the history. And I mean, you knew all these guys. You knew Colombo, you knew Brando. So you were the perfect person for that documentary, and I'm so glad that it worked out because I think it really made the story. And then since then, we've just kept in touch and we've been buddies. And when we see something, we text it to each other. And that's awesome because it was a great honor to interview you.
No, I mean, again, all my life, I've been helped by people, good guys, bad guys. And Costello introduced me to so many people. And he was the first one to introduce me to Joe Colombo, because most people don't realize Joe Colombo is one of the 5 families in New York. He's a real guy.
Big time.
And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have got the part in The Godfather. So, I mean, it's just how all of these introductions work. And that's why, as I said earlier, I really, truly believe that when I think of you, me as you at that age, I was turning over every rock to get to where I wanted to go. And it seems you have that same energy and the capability, and you have more knowledge than I do because I'm still in the woods as far as that whole life of the media. But I mean, that's why I'm really happy that I'll let the audience know also that we're going to do 2 segments because I think you have that much to say. And any way we could help you, not that you need us, but this is a platform you can call on anytime you want to exploit anything you want.
Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate that. And to your point, I think what I realized when I started working in this industry 3 years ago, 3 years was when I really started doing it seriously. Is that if you most of the time when you reach out to someone, especially a legend who's established in the industry like yourself, surprisingly they get back to you. And I think when you start off as a young person, you think, oh, I can't reach these guys. They're icons, they're famous. They're never going to get back to some kid like me. And that's a shame that people feel that way because it stops them from trying. And I found that when you actually do reach out, a lot of the time they get back. And sometimes, they say, no, thank you, I'm not interested in the project. But at least you establish that contact and you get to talk to some of these guys and they'll get on the phone with you and actors, producers, writers, directors. That's what a young person should do. They should try to learn from the legends.
You got to be aggressive, man. And I mean, you're complimenting me as a legend. The only reason I'm a legend because I lived a long time. I'm just old.
Well, also the stories that you told us when in that documentary were crazy. You told us about, down in Little Italy when the production van on The Godfather got stolen off the street and they had to go chase it down. And you told us about Lenny Montana and, how he was a real guy for Colombo and a real enforcer, but then he also had that magic moment on set that you said Coppola captured where he was, your daughter's wedding and all that. And that was just a natural moment. He happened to be rolling the camera and to capture that.
See, and to me, that for you to have that exposure in doing what you're doing, you realize how all these little elements make what we do so important. If you tried to write that, a director wouldn't even write it. But
Right.
seeing him doing it, and Lenny Montana was actually rehearsing it, which I confused me at first because I thought, is the audience actually going to believe that this guy's studying to talk to his boss? He kills for the guy, but
Right.
it worked. It actually worked.
Yeah, totally.
So
And Mhm.
how long ago was it that you guys met?
It was last year, right, Gianni?
Yeah.
Sometime last year.
Yeah. Well, Miles, you say a guy your age. I don't know if you want to tell us how old you are, but
I'm 26.
26.
Yeah.
I have a son that's about to be 30, so I figured you were around that age. But I'm looking at your Instagram. Gianni tells me about you, and so I try and stalk people right off the bat so I can get to know you a little bit. But you are everywhere. I mean, I'm looking at you. You're at a wedding that looked like a magazine for Bride magazine. Absolutely beautiful. And you're at all these different places. You're holding a little turtle. You're by a beautiful ocean. I'm like, this kid is everywhere. You're all over the place. Where's home base for you?
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm born and raised in New York. I was born
Okay.
on the Upper East Side, and that's where I grew up. And the wedding you're referring to, my sister got married earlier this year, which was really awesome. She got
Oh,
married in Italy, and I had the great honor of being the officiant and the MC of the wedding. So not only was I a guest like everyone else, but I also, had to go up to the altar and prepare speeches and all that stuff. So that was really special. But yeah, it was a fun year.
It was
oh, that's
the wedding was
awesome.
in Italy.
Yeah, it was at a Medici villa outside Florence. It was a beautiful
Wow.
venue. It was incredible. I honestly I can't believe how they pulled it off because like it was just we kept pinching ourselves the whole time. We were like, we can't believe this is real. It was an awesome wedding.
It
How
was
did they pull it
beautiful.
off? Because I've done a lot of things in Italy.
Sorry, what did you say?
How did they pull that off?
Well, I have to give credit a little bit to my sister. She is an expert planner. If you look at her notebooks and her ledger, she has everything highlighted gold. So she's been planning this for years. They also got just lucky. They got a wedding planner. They found a good venue. The weather was perfect. Everything it's just like a movie, I'm sure, Gianni. So many things have to line up for it to go as planned. And this was like one of those perfect weddings where nothing went wrong and we were just lucky.
That's
You
good.
know, Miles, it says a lot about you. Are you a big brother or a little brother?
I'm the little brother.
Well, it says a lot about you that they would ask a little brother to officiate a wedding. And what a compliment to you and what an honor. But yeah, I just was looking at all the things you're doing and the places you're at and what you're up to, and I'm thinking, my goodness, you are very accomplished as a young man, and
Thanks.
it's fun to see you are just going for it. So, I wish you all the best. Not that you need my good wishes, because it looks like you're well on your way. So tell us what your career is. What is your project for me? Because I don't know yet, but
Yeah.
Gianni knows more about what you've been up to. But tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, so I am right now writing and producing documentaries. And that is really where I've kind of learned the most in the last couple of years. My background is really in writing, and I've always loved movies. Growing up, my dad, he showed me movies from the 70s, especially as kind of like the gold standard. And so we always, like a lot of families in America, we would come home Friday night, put on The Godfather, right? And the Goodfellas and Deer Hunter and all these iconic movies that Goodfellas from the 90s, but the most of what we would watch is from the 70s, and it was from that great period. And so I kind of started digging into that. I went to Columbia. I went to Columbia University for college, and there I studied media and history, and I kind of started asking myself, how come all these amazing movies come out of this same period? What was in the water in 1970 that we look back and there's all these iconic movies. And so I dedicate a little time to thinking about that. And from my research, it seems like there's ebbs and flows in the industry, right? And the industry is constantly changing. But there was something that happened that Gianni and his colleagues really capitalized on and to create these great movies, which is that the old studio system was dying. The studio system of the 40s and the 50s and the 60s that had held all that power. Those guys like Jack Warner, right? They used to hold all the keys in the industry. But the problem was that nobody was going to those big the Sound of Music type movies anymore. There was a new industry rising up, and it was coming from young guys like Coppola and Scorsese and all these guys coming up in the early 70s. And what had happened was the old system economically was failing. So the studios started green lighting visions on these young directors that in a decade prior they would have told them kick rocks, you're not doing that. But now they needed them because we're desperate. No one's showing up. So you know what? We will green light Godfather 1, and we will green light, Robert Altman's movies and Bob Raffleson's movies and all these guys because they didn't really have another option. And so there was this beautiful period. I would kind of put it 1967 to 1975 for me is kind of the golden age of what people call New Hollywood. And Gianni was in a lot of those movies. And that is kind of this little blip of time when the writer and the director were able, and the actors were able to wrestle creative control away from the studio executives and have these really bold visions where they were shooting on location, doing things not by the book, being a little bit more experimental, a little bit more risky. Hearing some of these stories from Gianni about how they produced and made The Godfather, you could never get away with that now, right? There's too much red tape and corporate. You'd have to get legal and finance and all this stuff. But back then, they were just winging it and they were going out there and doing stuff. And that made it this really magical time in movies.
No, it's
Well,
amazing how a person like yourself recognize that. And that's why I feel it's so important to have you with us on the show. It's an asset to us because you could bring a whole new audience with us. And we have over 1 million followers a week. I think they need to hear you because, like you said, someone heard me when I was young and I got to where I wanted to go. You don't know who's going to call you now because of this. We constantly need new people because, I can't believe I'm 83 years old and I'm about to make my 46th film or 47th film.
Wow.
But it's because like you, I started, I wouldn't have anybody shut the door on me. I'd climb through the window. I'll get in. But you, again, I hate to reiterate the fact that you remind me of you, but that's only in a good way, not my bad parts. Your creativeness and you're willing to get it done. Go in and do it.
Right. And I'm looking at him, Gianni, and I'm thinking, well, if he was an actor, he could play you. He looks like he could be a relative. And it's so funny because that's what I was trying to figure out. Where did you guys connect? But he looks like he could be one of your grandsons. So
Oh,
if
yeah,
that ever
good
comes
for you.
up, do you have any acting abilities, Miles?
Well, thank you. I do have some acting ability. So far, I only have experience writing, producing, and editing, but I'm always willing to try a new side of the industry. And to tie back to your original question, Jeannie, so I saw that great era and that inspired me. And I thought I want to emulate that. And so then when I started getting the opportunity to write and produce my own stuff, I immediately thought of doing stuff on that era of movies. And that's how I came to write that script for that doc that Gianni was in, because I wanted to kind of pay homage to those great movies. And The Godfather, of course. I mean, can you think of a more iconic movie in the world? I can't. And so to speak to an actor from that movie, that was a surreal experience for me.
Well, I'm going to make a promise to you on air right now. If I had one of the books, I'd send it to you. Go on Amazon,
Hmm.
and I don't know if you read Mafia Secrets yet.
I read Hollywood Godfather, but I haven't read Mafia Secrets yet.
Well, Mafia Secrets is getting a lot of attention
Okay.
for
Of
a lot of reasons. You know the name James Patterson, one of the best literary writers in the world.
course.
Well, when Hollywood Godfather came out in October of last year, the following month, he wrote The Last Days of Marilyn Monroe. And he solidified everything I said 63 years earlier.
Wow.
And he had the coroner's reports. And he named, which just took this title to the moon, because he named that, which I said 63 years ago, Bobby Kennedy killed her. The Attorney General of the United States killed Marilyn Monroe, smothered her. And they threatened her housekeeper and everybody else. Now, all those years pass. James Patterson did research and proved everything I said. So he gave me such credibility now that
Yeah, the fact that he would come up with this stuff that Gianni's been saying forever, there's got to be validity to some of it, because where would James Patterson have come up with those same ideas? It's for a story. So,
and he had Noguchi, the coroner's reports. He dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. And now, why I'm saying this, the recognition and the notoriety Mafia Secrets is getting now. We've already been proposed a $50 million budget
Whoa.
to make the movie.
That's crazy. Well, I think a lot of modern viewers are realizing the official story that we got from that whole era on a lot of these things is bogus. And the more people look into it, the more they realize, hold on, something's not adding up here. And that's not just Maryland, that's JFK, that's MLK, that's
Oh,
the
yeah.
tumultuous period of the 60s and the 70s. So much of it was hidden in mysteries and lies and all this stuff.
corrupt.
It's crazy.
Cover-ups, yes. Dorothy Kilgallen is another one that is one of those out there that I think they were sold a big story to, that she was an investigative reporter, and she died mysteriously as well. So
Well, she died by the same person. I named who killed her. I
yeah,
named the people who killed her. Now this is all coming out.
yeah, it's
So,
wild.
I mean, it's ironic because as we're speaking here, and I mean, you're a good-looking guy. I never looked at you in a way that you could play me, but you could.
Thanks.
Oh yeah, I
So
can see him side by side, and I'm like, holy smokes, that's wild. So let's take just a quick minute, get a quick break in here, and then we will get right back to Miles Stevenson.
I'm going
Awesome.
to do the commercials while we're all here.
All right.
The only commercial I'm talking about is Hollywood Godfather. I mean, Hollywood Godfather.
Mafia Secrets.
Mafia Secrets, and what's going to be happening with it. I recommend you go on Amazon, buy it now. It's on sale. It's going to be a blockbuster film. And George Gallo, one of my closest friends, will be directing it. And this is like in the works. So with that said, and anything else that's happening in the next 90 days, just go on my website. You'll see where I'm at. I'll be doing a lot of engagements through the tri-state area through the summer months. And let's get back to my new best friend, Miles.
Uh,
Wow, that's exciting stuff, John. I didn't know that it was being turned into a movie.
Yeah, yep.
That's awesome.
Did you ever see the cover? That's the cover. Can you see?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've
it's a
seen
great cover.
that's
So,
amazing.
Miles, you
Mhm.
said you read the book.
Yeah.
I don't sit down too often. I did read the book, but I also listened to it on Audible,
Hmm.
narrated by Gianni. Yeah, I love the book, but there's nothing better than listening to the story. For me, there was nothing better than listening to the story told by Gianni.
Sure.
So if you're ever in a spot where you need to listen, if you're on an airplane or something like that, or you can also listen to it on audio form told by Gianni, which I think that's my favorite. But just it is great to hear it told by Gianni. I think it just adds a whole nother dimension to it. So anyway, so there's
Mafia Secrets is coming out shortly.
yes, yes.
So I read
Yep.
that.
Yeah, so Mafia Secrets, yeah, for everybody, it's on Amazon. Go and get that because that's such a great new book, and it's fun to hear all these things that Gianni has to say, and you'll start recognizing some of the things that maybe you'll think twice about that you heard in maybe a different story the first time it came out, right, Gianni?
Well, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I'm getting a repercussion from is from the Vatican, which is
Tell
going to
too
be
many
great
secrets.
publicity because
They're getting a little mad.
Miles, in this book, I actually let them know how I moved $600 million from the casinos in Vegas to the Vatican to launder over 5 years.
That is crazy. I think you told me that story. Did it have to do with you were at an airport and you had duffel bags and you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
hurrying them onto
exactly.
the
Yeah.
jet? That
But
is
now
crazy.
the statute of limitations is over. 30 years it is in Italy. So they can't even come after me. See, they couldn't even stop me at the airport. They knew what I was doing, but I always do things in the gray area. And what I did, I became a courier for Sotheby's and I was licensed. And my employers were the Vatican. So when they would stop me even at the airports, I'd show them, wait a minute, hold it. You can't take this money. It's the Vatican's money. So they would have to go subpoena the Vatican to stop me because I was just a courier. I have nothing to do with this. I don't know whose money it is and where it came from.
Gianni, I feel like you've lived 100 lives.
I
Oh,
I feel like that sometimes too.
Like all the crazy story. And then you told me that story in your nightclub where the guy attacked you.
Oh my God, yeah.
And oh
Pablo
my God.
Escobar's guy. Slipped my
Miles, yeah. I will tell you, Miles, some of the funnest days I have being a co-host on this show,
Uh,
because I'm not anybody. We have people like Paul Anka on. We had Engelbert Humperdinck. I assuming you know these people because you
yeah.
have an interest in the 70s and stuff like that. Engelbert Humperdinck, Tony Orlando was just on, and to listen to these people and anybody who thinks, oh, Gianni's full of baloney. Tony Orlando comes on and starts talking about the good old days down at State Street and all the crazy stories. And it's so fun for me to sit back here and listen to Gianni and his friends talk about the wild and crazy things they used to do when he had that club, and like you, I think just having the confidence to step your foot into things that who knows if you're going to get in the door, but hey, go for it and it's paying off for you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, let me tell you another story of that because I think that's helpful for young viewers to see that if you just kind of reach out and try to connect with some of these legends, a lot of them will get back to you. So I was working on around the same time I was doing the Mafia documentary, I was working on a tribute to Gene Hackman because Gene Hackman was I was a huge fan of his. In my mind, he is one of the kind of like ideal actors. He embodies so many different emotions, and he's just a legend. So when he passed away, I was really sad. And I was lucky enough to work on and produce and write a doc that was kind of a tribute to his life and all his great work. And one of the people I reached out to was James Woods.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was not expecting, a reply because, he's James Woods and he's a busy guy, and I assume, and he had
What
also,
a nice guy.
what,
I know James Woods really well.
really?
Oh, I spent a lot of time with him. He was a good friend of mine.
That doesn't surprise me. I feel like Johnny knows everyone. And
Right.
um and so I reached out to him, and then I kind of put my work away for the day. I was sitting in my room, and all of a sudden I get a call, and it's like an unknown number, and I answer it, and he's like, "Hey, it's Jimmy Woods. How's it going?" And I'm like, I didn't it took me a second to process it. I'm like, "Sorry, wait, what? Who
Yeah. Who's Jimmy Woods?
Yeah, I thought it was like a sales call. I'm like, can I help you? And then he's like, it's James. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's James Woods calling me. So that was like a surreal moment. And he was just the nicest guy. And went out to LA, interviewed him. And he and Gene Hackman had worked on a movie in 1975 called Night Moves. You've probably heard of it. And
Mhm.
it was a noir kind of crime thriller set in Florida. And it was a really interesting movie. I loved it. And that was how he met Gene Hackman. And Gene became something of a mentor to James Woods and kind of told him a lot of big things on set, and told him these lessons that James still carries to today. So that was cool because I got to hear all these behind the scenes stories working on set with Gene back in the 70s, what it was like, some of the crazy stuff they went through, dangerous stuff. And it was just awesome.
Well, the biggest movie I made with
Mhm.
James Woods was Any Given Sunday.
Right.
That's right.
Hello.
I
So
forgot
he,
about that.
hello.
With
We can work.
Pacino.
What's that?
With Pacino.
Yeah, yeah. We had 38 major movie stars in that movie.
That's a crazy cast. You go through that. Charlton Heston too, right?
Yeah, Charleston Heston came in for one day as a favor to me, and everybody it was so funny because we were shooting in Dallas Cowboys Stadium because the NFL wouldn't sanction the movie because we showed it the way it is. My brother-in-law at that time was Pat Bolin, who owned the Denver Broncos. So I
Whoa,
was, I shot that movie between the two repeats of the Super Bowl.
that's crazy.
It
It
was
was in the Denver Broncos Stadium.
no,
Oh,
they wouldn't let us use it. But
oh,
the Cowboys owner, what the heck is his name? A major guy, yeah, he still owns the Cowboys. But he said,
Jones.
"Come shoot, come shoot down there with me. I don't care about these guys." And when I had the only reason I'm bringing it up, when they saw, and I call him Moses, when they saw Charleston Heston come for one day, he did me a favor
That's awesome.
to play, and he played Ipapu, who was the head of the NFL. So I mean, it was. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And when everybody thinks that I do, watch the movie. There it is.
That's
That's the thing. Gianni will have guests on that in no way would you think they'd come up with something and they'd say, "Well, when I was a kid, my dad ran Fountain Blue, and I used to come in every day while he cleaned up." And Gianni was like, "Yeah." Then Gianni would say the dad's name, and the kid was like, "Yeah, I was there every day. I was a little boy." And it's just wild because if people think Gianni's telling all these things, people come and back him up every single episode. It is so wild. So it,
Well,
it is
at
so
the
fun.
Fontainebleau Hotel, I actually kept Cabana One for 2 years,
wow.
and I was having gin rummy games there, and I had players in there, and we were taking down big money with this. But Meyer Lansky actually ran the hotel, but
Wow.
the guy
So
who ran it. I mean, I could do movie after movie after movie during that period if you want. It's insanity.
as part of that same series we did on the Mafia, I wrote this episode that was set at the Fountain Blue, and it was very interesting. This whole period of history I didn't even know about. Apparently, and this is now confirmed in government documents, so it's not just hearsay. The CIA sat down with Sam Giancana at the Fountain Blue Hotel to organize the attempted assassination of Fidel Castro. And this
Exactly.
thing This was a crazy story to me. And they
And
all,
guess
yeah.
who was in that meeting?
Who?
Johnny Roselli and me.
You were in that meeting?
Yes, I
No
don't
way.
have to. I just had to be. I was the eyes and ears for Costello. He wanted to know
That's crazy.
because the deal that most people don't know, we're going to tell them now. Joe Kennedy and Frank Costello during Prohibition made 30 million each in the 30s. Now he wanted his son to become president. So he went to see Frank Costello before anybody. And I was 17 and I started traveling through all the states. I wasn't doing anything else no more. He said, I just want you to focus on this because they made a deal, which they never consummated. And that's how his sons got assassinated. Nobody knows that story. Joe Kennedy told Costello, get all your mob friends, all the unions, and everybody to back him. And if he becomes president, the first thing we're going to do is invade Cuba and get your casinos back. That's why I was in that meeting, because he now is president and they were doing nothing. I delivered a message to his house in Hyannisport to Joe Kennedy. And I delivered envelopes a few times. And I'm left, and as I'm walking down a driveway, I'm hearing somebody screaming. I don't know if it was a man or a woman. The next day, I read that he went into a full coma, never came out of it. See, I never liked Joe Kennedy because he did something. He had one daughter. I don't know if you know about this. He had one daughter, and he had no use for women. He had his daughter have a frontal lobotomy. She was a vegetable in a chair for the rest of her life. And then I read he was, in a coma. He don't even know his sons were killed. That's what the note was. They read the note saying, if we don't get the casinos back, we're going to start killing off your sons. That's what he read, and that's why he got into the
And
coma.
he had a stroke. Oh, geez.
Jeez.
I mean, this stuff you can't make up.
That's crazy. And so, yeah, we did a whole episode on that Fontainebleau meeting. And the Johnny Roselli kind of being the connector between the CIA
That's
and
why I told you Johnny Roselli was there. You
right.
went Maya Lansky.
Yeah. Johnny Roselli. And then back in Cuba, their guy was Santo Traficante Jr., and he had the kind of the muscle there.
He had the connection with Fidel Castro.
Right.
And what I'll tell you something they were trying to do, and he was going to do it for them. Santo Traficante was so close to Fidel Castro that they came up with a powder, because he always used to play with his mustache. And he gave him these little gold powder in a beautiful engraved can, but it had poison in it. If he kept using the powder, within 15, 20 days, he was going to kill himself.
Jeez.
You can't make this up. This is like James Bond all over again.
I also heard about an exploding cigar and a poisonous wetsuit.
They were trying everything.
All these crazy methods. None of them worked because obviously Castro
No.
lived. But there was one that was a wetsuit that had poison in it. So when Castro put it on, he would be killed.
Exactly.
Crazy.
They came up with everything in the world. But see, they did have the end through Santo Traficante and Johnny Roselli with Fidel Castro. So that's why that was all about. They trained Johnny Roselli to kill him as a marksman. It's crazy. I mean, it's stuff. But I say it when I can put it in the contents of a whole story, and the story has the facts that you say, wow, that's what happened.
Yeah.
That's incredible. You hear all these stories, and then it's amazing to hear the backstories, and then Gianni can elaborate on all these things that have happened. And that's how I got involved with the show. I asked him a question about something
She was a
that we
fan.
were talking about on the show, and I was just a fan. I would just listen all the time, and I was like, I'm going to get a whiteboard to put in my shower because I always would, the first thing, I was so excited to get up in the morning, put that podcast on and start getting ready for work. And so I would try and write some questions down or remember by the time I got out. And that's how I got involved with Gianni. It's just because his mind, all you got to do is throw a topic at him, and then he starts elaborating and telling you what he knows from behind the scenes. And it's just incredible that his mind is so great that you can bring something up, and we have guests on the show and they'll start talking about something, and then boom, here will come a new memory for Gianni. And the fun things for me when he'll bring out a picture. You know, I told him I want to just come and sit and go through all of his scrapbooks full of pictures, because the stuff he's got and the pictures he's got to back this stuff up is incredible.
Oh, Jeannie, I did that when I went to Gianni's house. He was nice enough to give me the photo album, and I went page by page, and I was like, this is gold, because there was stuff on photos of him, you know, behind the scenes on set of The Godfather, you know, leaning against a tree, like photos you can't really find online.
Right.
You know? One with you and I think it's Richard Castellano. Is that the name of the actor who plays in The Godfather?
Richard Castellano, but
Yeah.
Richard Conti and I were very close.
Right.
He played Barzini.
Yeah, you have Barzini and then Clemenza with Castellano and all these cool photos. Like there was one of Clemenza sitting in a chair, and I think you're like either shaving him or something, or like
massaging his shoulders.
yeah, massaging his
Oh,
shoulders.
yeah.
There was all these iconic photos, you know, that
Well,
you
you know,
can't
people didn't know what I was doing even on the set, because I wanted to be nice to all these people, because that's my first movie. I didn't know what I was doing there.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Joe Colombo got me the part, but that's why even Brando, when I say Brando was my only acting teacher, he was worried about me destroying the movie, because when he went to Coppola and said, you got to think of getting somebody else for this part. This guy's got to be believable. He's not even an actor. And I didn't know protocol. I dismissed Coppola and he left. And I put my arm around Brando and I walked him away. And I said, I don't want to insult you, but listen to me. I'm only going to tell you this one time. You get me fired from this movie, I will suck on your heart right here, right now. You're dead. He stepped back. He said, that was brilliant. He thought I was acting. I was ready to whack him.
That's crazy.
And then you became best friends.
Oh, yeah. Then he became my acting teacher.
That's amazing. So what do you...
Lucky to have Marlon Brando as your acting teacher, right, Jeannie?
Oh, my God.
Oh, right. Tell him who your singing coach was. Or tell him.
I know, Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Is that right? Who gets to say that? These legends who probably weren't acting coaches nor singing coaches to anyone. However, Gianni fell in their laps, and not only did they become mentors, but dear friends until they died, both of them.
So this is why,
Right.
see, Miles, having you with all your knowledge and where you're going, it reminds me and brings out a lot about my past. That's why I'm so happy, and our audience is going to be happy that we're going to make the announcement right now. We're doing 2 segments with you. So we're ending the first segment now. Next week, tune in again, and we're going to get into deeper stories. Miles, you agreed to come back. Thank you for that. Jeannie, I will see you next week. And everybody out there, stay healthy and happy, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Jeannie. Thanks for having me on. It was a blast talking to you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Roll the lights, hit the scene. A legend walks in stride. Gianni's got the stories from the coast to countryside. Jeannie's got the questions, sharp as Sinatra's sway. Every Wednesday night we take you all the way. From the back streets of Tinseltown to the Trattoria's glow.